Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Pursuit of Progress podcast. As always, you guys, my name is Adam, and I'm actually solo today. My co-host Ben is out enjoying the last few days of summer vacation with his kiddos, so he'll be back next week. But in today's episode, I'm going to give you guys something quick, but something definitely actionable, and I think you're going to enjoy this one. So the title of this episode is The 4 Steps That Make Lazy Impossible. And what I mean by this is just really the fact that a lot of people out there, myself included, I think you guys probably as well, you're ambitious, you've got big dreams, but you also find yourself a lot of times stuck, maybe distracted, even just beating yourself up for not doing more. Well, in this episode, I'm going to be breaking down 4 really simple steps that can help you guys reset, rebuild, and start showing up like the version of you that you know you're supposed to be. So don't, fall into this trap of, I'll start next week or I'll start Monday. And instead, building up that momentum to match whatever ambition you have. So I'm going to again share with you guys 4 really specific steps. And the first of the 4 is this concept that you're not stuck, you're probably just unclear. And what I mean by this is, a lot of people, they don't quit because they're lazy. A lot of people actually quit just because they don't know what to do next. And I've definitely been in this position before. And even recently, I was dealing with this a bit where you open up your computer and you're just not really sure what to do that day. And sometimes you equate that to lack of ambition, where it really just might be that you're just unclear of what you need to do next. Maybe you have your computer open and there's 40 browser tabs open, ideas everywhere, but no momentum. Again, that's not laziness. A lot of times that might just be confusion. There's a big difference there. So the system that I use every time I get jammed up, it's pretty easy. And what I do is I just dump everything out of my head. So I'm lucky. I have 2 computer monitors. So on my second one, I just have this as kind of my dump computer where I just put everything out there. I write it all down just on a document. And every week, just kind of modify this document to keep myself accountable and moving forwards and progressing. So with this brain dump, just do it however best fits you with your desk or whatever your scenario is that you're dealing with. But I think definitely it's important to write it down, whether that be typing it out, but definitely having it written down somewhere. And that's everything you guys can think of. Just get it out of your head. Ideas, to-dos, just mental clutter, all of that kind of stuff. Just getting it out of your brain and dumping it onto a piece of paper or into like a working Google document that I do. Once you've done that, what I do now is I chunk things by category. For example, fitness or business, maybe family. Maybe you're producing content like I am and having a content category. What's important is just chunking it from that just brain dump into some of these categories. And then within each category at this point, this is the best part, you get to sequence it all based off of priority. What's going to move the needle? What are $10 an hour type ideas? And maybe what are $100 or $1,000 an hour ideas? If certain tasks or ideas are much more important and are actually going to progress you forwards, put those at the top of each of these categories and tackle those ones first. Once you've been able to do this, you can just delete a lot of that noise. If it's not a hell yes, I need to do this, then it might end up just being a hard no. And maybe you never end up acting even on some of these ideas, but at least you've gotten them out of your head and can then come to that realization once addressing some of the other things that might be more important. So it's really important, you guys, is clarity on paper, and clarity is what really creates that movement. So step 2 is going to be a little bit different. And this one's going to be all about upgrading your identity first. So we've all bought the lie that, success comes from doing more, work harder, work more. I worked 22 hours yesterday, that kind of stuff. But it's true that real change really does start just with your identity. Most people, they live by have, do, be. So what do I have? Okay, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to be this person. For example, I'm going to, I really want to have this brand new camera so I can do higher quality videos, and then I can be this massive social influencer. That's actually kind of backwards. And I think without a doubt, you need to flip this completely upside down and do a 180. So instead, be, do, have. So again, not have, do, be, but be, do, have. So who do you want to be? You become the person first. For example, I have a friend, a few years ago that was really trying to get into Ironmans. And an Ironman, for anybody that's not familiar, it's basically a very intense physical feat where you're doing 3 different categories. You're running, you're biking, and you're swimming. Well, my buddy actually did not even know how to swim when he signed up for his first Ironman. But every morning he told himself, I am an Iron Man. He had this little sticker in his bathroom mirror that just said, I am an Iron Man. He wrote this down and put it on his mirror before he even stepped into a pool, practically. And this is just this sense of almost like a manifestation. By having stuff like this out in front of you, you start thinking, acting, and even just training differently. You train like the person you're trying to become, that be portion that I'm talking about. That identity is what's going to then pull you forward and continue to progress. What do you need to become? Well, starting today, change that mindset again where it's be, do, have. If you want to be something, well, let's just say I want to be a very successful entrepreneur. Well, what do I need to do to be that type of a person? Maybe it means I need to be more organized. Maybe I need to read some certain books to be more educated on certain topics, whatever it may be, but that's the do. And then once you do that stuff, then you have the ability, you have that extra insight and knowledge by doing. So that's just really important, you guys. I think just really switching this entire mindset upside down, be, do, have. All right. So now step 3, the third step of the 4 this is a big one. I think this is probably one that I've noticed firsthand that's changed most dramatically in my personal life. And that's change your environment. So if you want better outcomes, stop trying to out-discipline a toxic environment. You're not failing because of a lack of willpower. It could just be something else. So here are the 3 environments that you really must focus on resetting first, in my opinion. The first one is physical. What's in your space? Are you working at home? Do you have a lot of just, noise and just stuff going on? Maybe you have your kids still home from summer vacation and it's kind of hectic at home. It's loud. There's a lot of distractions. Maybe even if it's with a fitness type goal, you have a lot of junk food in the house, chaos. Swap some of that temptation for tools. So physical environment is really important. Just making sure that your environment is set up for you to have the highest level of success. Another one that I'll share with you guys personally that I've really gotten value from is putting on headphones, even if you're at your home by yourself and it's a quiet environment to begin with, still putting on headphones, and you can either just have it be silent or you can even look up different types of binaural beats. And it's a very specific beat per minute of just instrumental music. And it's great for, I think, concentration, motivation even, and just kind of getting into that flow state. So that's a really important one for me, is just having everything in my office and just my environment in general set up to have the highest chance of success for me on that given day. So after we've got the physical environment set up, next we want to work on our social environment. Who are you around? What energy vampires or maybe growth-minded people exist in your inner circle? If you have some of those vampires, maybe it's time to do a little bit of an audit on your social circle and try and find ways to still have those people in your life, but maybe not on a daily basis or not around you when you're really focused on trying to find growth in your life. So maybe try and look into what other people are more similar to you when it comes to your goals and your mindset. Try and interact with those people a bit more often. There's a really, really great principle known as the Pareto principle, which is the 80-20 rule. And this is just really fascinating because there's different aspects of this, but one of them talks about how you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time around. And there's even been studies done where they've taken people that are trying to get more successful financially, and they will take their group of 5 friends that they spend the most time around. They'll take all 5 of those people and they'll find out what their annual income or their net worth is. And the average of those 5 other people, it's crazy. That percentage or that dollar amount, that whatever you guys are measuring, but it ends up being almost exactly what the subject is at that point in their life. So if I have a $100,000 a year salary and I really want to get to $1 million a year, well, if I'm sticking around and the people I'm surrounding myself with are, maybe under 100,000, then that's a lot harder to get to that next level. And the only thing I was going to end on this one, because I don't want you guys listening to this or watching this on our YouTube channel and taking this the wrong way. There's still so many different ways that people can add to our lives. And it's not all about finances and money and material things. There's lots of other ways that people can contribute to your life. So there can be different circles depending on what it is that you're working on. Maybe you have, kind of a different circle for emotional type stuff going on, or maybe for physical and maybe for business. So don't feel like you need to completely take people out of your life. Just, at least if nothing else, have this in the back of your head and just start thinking about that when you're around different people. And if they do tend to be kind of that energy vampire, do your best just to limit the time that you spend around them just to protect yourself and your mindset. All right. So next up is the fourth and final step, which is start messy. So the reason I put this one as start messy is here's the truth. Most people, they don't lack ambition, they lack courage. And I think this is one of the things with being messy. It's so important to embrace this and just get out there and do whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. And don't worry if it's messy. Don't worry if it's not perfect. So many people never take action because they're so debilitated by what other people are going to think and just how other people might, react to whatever it is that you or the subject is putting out there into the world. They're scared to look stupid. They're scared to get it wrong. So they plan, they overthink, they stall, they make any excuse they can just to not take that action. But I got to tell you, one of the biggest lessons I've learned, especially in the last decade or so of my life, is movement is much, much bigger than perfection. Action is much more important than anxiety. By taking action, and the more action you take, most likely the less anxiety you're going to have because there's less questions and less competence when you have anxiousness. When you're actually taking action and you're taking steps forward, that's when you become more competent, more confident, and overall just find a lot more movement and not worrying so much about that perfection. So start messy, build that version 1, launch it before it's perfect, and definitely always just strive to get 1% better every time you do it. And that's the whole point of this podcast, as a whole. That's why the topics are always kind of about these types of things. But even the title of our podcast, The Pursuit of Progress, we're all about just finding ways to work hard to get just 1% better every single day. And I think this is a great, opportunity to do that when going through these 4 steps. If you're not at least a little bit embarrassed by that first version or that first attempt, you waited too long. That's a really good indication that you probably should have started sooner. So with all of that being said, here are my final thoughts. You're not lazy. You're not broken. You're probably not misaligned. Just fix the inputs and the outputs will take care of themselves. Just get clear on what you're trying to accomplish and everything else should fall into place. You got to anchor that identity. You got to clean up your environment and you got to move, even if it's messy. These are the 4 steps that I think are the most impactful, that are pretty simple, but it's all about the simplicity to really find greatness. And that's something that I've found almost every, really successful billionaire, millionaire, athlete, musician, actor, any of that kind of stuff. They all have this very similar connotation, which is just to start. Don't be so worried. Just get out there, work on getting a little bit better each time you do something. And if you do that, I guarantee within a few months, you are going to see massive amounts of movement, massive amounts of growth, and you're going to be amazed how much further along you are than you probably thought you could even get to. So that's all that I have for you guys today. Hopefully you can escape this survival loop. You can build up some of that real momentum. If this episode today spoke to you, send it to a friend who's maybe been stuck as well, and maybe just find a way to, just subtly share this with them, and hopefully they can work on themselves as well. But every single Friday, we have new episodes coming out. So excited to share a brand new one with you guys next week when Ben is back in town and back on the podcast with me. And one last plug before we leave. Normally we do a sponsor of the week segment. Well, this week, I just wanted to remind you guys that coming up in just 1 week, Ben and I are hosting another brand new, it's live, it's free, and it's online. It's a home buyer masterclass, but we go a lot more in depth than just the home buyer process. We talk about what's really happening right now in the real estate market. We talk about some strategies and techniques that our actual clients and people that we're around every single day are still doing today to still win and succeed. So I would love to share this with you guys first and get you guys hopefully a free ticket if you're interested. So if you want one, just go to webinar.adamsillsdenver.com and grab it there. Again, it's coming up in just a couple weeks and spots are limited. So we'd love for you guys to claim one and be there and hopefully get some value from that as well. Hope you have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you guys next week on a brand new episode of the Pursuit of Progress podcast. I'll see you guys then.